welcome everybody. It is 8 o'clock. Welcome to Tribe TV. I am here live in the lovely city of Hull. Hotspot for coronavirus at the moment. Boy, there's loads going on. Hey, I hope you're all well and you've had a good week. I enjoyed doing last week. It was good fun. Learning all this kind of software, and thank you for all your comments. I can see them over here right next to me. If you comment to me, I'll be able to read it, and you never know, I might even be able to respond in between when there's songs and stuff like that. So yeah, we got some songs for you tonight. We are going to talk now on Twitter. I did a little thing where I asked people, what do you want to talk about tonight? And so here was the outcome of my little poll. Okay, I said US elections. Only 26% wanted to talk about that. Have we had enough of it now? Oh boy, I can't believe it's still going on. The vaccine, only 13% wanted to talk about that, so we won't go there much today. Although some of you have been emailing me about it, so maybe we'll hit it again some other time. Living more stress-free, 20% wanted to talk about that. And then 41%, so this is where we're going to go for a little bit at the beginning tonight. Should church meet now? And I didn't have enough kind of letters to put it in there, but what I wanted to also put is it right for the church to take the government to court over whether we can meet and stuff like that? Hey, I can see all your comments coming through. Fantastic. Keep them coming. Really, let us know where you're watching from. Really good to have you on. Share the link, okay? Go to YouTube, share a link. Make sure you subscribe to this channel too and set notifications on so that you know whenever I come on and stuff like that. It'd be great to keep in touch that way. And Karen from Scotland. Bonnie, Scotland. Fantastic. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Really, really good. So what am I talking about? Well, we're gonna talk about, should church take government to court? Should we be meeting now? Do you know what? I actually hear that I think some churches are trying to meet. It's hitting the news every now and then, isn't it? So we'll talk about what's going on with all that, whether we should or shouldn't. We'll talk a little bit about what's happening with the pandemic at the moment, trying to make sense of it all. And I hope not to be anyone cranky on YouTube, right? I'm not some guy in a Hawaiian shirt spouting nonsense, because let's be honest, there's just lots that someone like me ain't going to know. This is the equivalent to sitting with your friend in a coffee shop or down the pub and having a chat about what we think is right or wrong. The bit where my responsibility comes in is that I'm a church leader, so I have to work out what to actually do with the church these days and how to lead it through this thing. That's the bit that in theory I should know about, so I kind of lean into that, but I'm not going to pretend to be anything that I'm not, and some of you are going to know loads more than me. So email in your opinions, stick them in the chat. I don't mind. Just don't be cranky, don't be rude to each other or me. Yes, time for Christian lawyers to make themselves known. So was it? Yeah, okay, well, we'll come to that in a minute. So we're going to look at that. I want to talk to you about stress. You know, the Bible has got a secret for beating stress woven into it, and I want to share it with you. It's probably something, if you're a Western Christian, probably something that you've not thought about for a lot of years, but it may just save your life. God put a secret for beating stress in the Bible, so we'll have a little look at that. I want to talk to you about a new church mentoring partnership that we've got going at the moment that might interest you if you're a church leader, or you can send the information to your church leader. We'd love to be helping people in leadership, even through this time right now. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that, but we've got some songs, and then I've got a little talk for you. We're going to carry on with the glory in the church stuff, and I'm going to talk about frustration. Are you frustrated? Anybody out there? Oh boy, I live half my life frustrated. But you know what? Frustration is often the first prophet of a move of God. It's the first thing that starts to kick off in you when God wants to do something new. He will let you become frustrated. Oh boy, I heard a quote on the radio today. What was it? Who said it? Augustine? I can't remember. Said, God has salted our lips to make us thirst for him. And that's what God does. He salts our lips. I'm going to talk about that as well tonight. It might not go on quite as long as last time. I came off and Vicky, my wife, said, that was an hour and a half. Did you mean to? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I just start and keep going. So probably try and not go on quite so long, but because I want it to be watchable for you. But let's see where we get, shall we? I've got to remember what to do now. Should we have a song? This is a song from one of my older albums that I did with a company called Authentic. And then I think by a series of events, they ended up bought out by Kingsway, I think, now own the album rights to this. But we recorded this around the UK, and then parts of it were recorded in Nashville. Have a little listen to this and get your heart in the right place to be near Jesus tonight, because, we'll have a chat, we'll have a talk, but I just hope you get some sense of the grace of God in your life tonight. Here's a song called You Are My Healer. You are my healer, my deliverer, my friend. You are my Savior, you're my Lord, my all, my end. Jesus, 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 sweetest name. Jesus, 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 sweetest name. You are my refuge, you're my fortress, safe from harm. You are my comfort, you're my shelter in this storm. Jesus, Jesus, sweetest name. Oh yeah, yeah. Jesus, my Jesus, sweetest name. Oh yeah, yeah. My healer, my deliverer, my friend. Wow, well, I hope you enjoyed that. That goes back a bit for me. Way, way, way back. All right, so let's talk about it, shall we? Should church be meeting right now? And I'm talking about an English context here, right? We're under a a pretty full lockdown. It's not the heaviest lockdown I've ever heard of, but we're under lockdown here in the UK, and we're certainly not allowed to meet as churches right now. Um, I think buildings are open for a bit of private prayer. That's about it. Hey, did you notice somewhere in Australia they put 52,000 people in a stadium the other day? I guess this last weekend. I don't know. I've just seen the pictures of it before coming on here. So some places really are opening up. It was just crowds. So it's amazing the differential of what's going on around in the world right now. And that's kind of half the problem. How localized everything is. It's really different from place to place, isn't it? Hull right now is supposed to be the UK hotspot for cases right now. And I know a few people that have been diagnosed, with COVID. And so certainly more now than I knew in March, April. So there's lots going on, isn't there, right now? So let me try and deal with this as a church leader. Should churches be meeting right now? And should churches take the government to court? And it's a really interesting concept, isn't it? Because I think 100 and something churches are taking the government to court at the moment, and they're questioning some of the decisions being made with regards to lockdown. And so here's my take on it, and it's not definitive, it's just my take on it. And I'd appreciate any wisdom you can give. Don't send me lots of videos from random people on YouTube. There are some good places to look at and to get some information, but we've got to try and find our way through what has become, and I suppose this is the core of my theme. And I heard the phrase just before I came on. What was it? Infodemic. We're going through an infodemic that we don't know. Can we believe a government press briefing? Can we believe random people on YouTube? Can we believe every Facebook post? And should you believe what some guy on a program called The Tribe is saying? Who are we to believe? Who knows what they're talking about? Without a doubt, we're in a real kind of confusing situation. Let me just premise this by starting by saying I am not a COVID skeptic or anything like that. I believe COVID is real. I believe it's a nasty infection that weirdly, and here's part of the problem, some people just seem completely asymptomatic, get nothing. A lot of people might get mild symptoms. A few people get quite ill with it. And then a tiny amount of people die. But the confusing part of it is things like the fact that the average age that people are dying of COVID is actually older than the average life expectancy in our country. So it really is preying on particular groups, isn't it? So it's an unusual thing. And I didn't disagree with us going into lockdown in March, April. I with the situation that we had, where nobody seemed to know what we were facing, most of the eminent epidemiologists and professors and scientists and doctors that I listened to would go, no, that was perfectly appropriate to get a handle on what was going on then. And we saw that spike. And if you of cases and deaths in March, April, and if you watch the prophets speak, we were talking about the prophecies that there would be a real Passover, that there'd be some plague-like situation at Passover. And that's exactly when the UK, at least, and quite a few other nations, but not the whole world, peaked with this sense of something going on. But then what has happened since? And it's really the product of our society these days, is it? It's become a right information mess. And from certain professors coming out on TV telling us that we're heading towards 50,000 cases a day, and that we're heading to 4,000 deaths a day, and all this kind of stuff, and all that information is then ridiculed and pulled apart and debunked. Well, the second one, the 4,000 deaths a day, within hours that was debunked as old information. And why these guys seem to go for worst case scenario instead of most likely scenario, I'll never know. Or maybe I do. I can see the logic in it. I suppose if you talk about the very worst and you get anything better, then I suppose that puts them in a good place. But aren't we in a mess, information-wise, that this is what's happened? There's a complete loss of trust in the United Kingdom, at least, as far as I can see. between what the government is saying. Many people are struggling to now, because we feel like we've been handled with information, coerced perhaps with information. Whether it was intentional or not, I'm not going to sit here and judge that, because again, I've kind of got to watch my speak and not really talk like a guy down the pub just being bolshy and a bit rude. I want to think through what has actually happened. You'll find I'm an anti-conspiracy theorist as a temperament. I can't believe that lizards are running the planet or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? So I generally don't go for them. And then the other thing is, I've grown up my whole life in leadership households, so I always have a bit of sympathy for the people that are trying to make decisions, especially when that's on scant information. But having said all that, where we find ourselves now is in a complete loss of trust. And so people are turning to YouTube. People are feeling that they can get more from talk radio than perhaps a government press briefing to try and find out what's going on. And, however many of you are watching right now, there's probably that many different opinions on what's going on and whether we should take the vaccine or not, whether churches should open or close. And we're all getting quite vocal about it. And I think for me, the most distressing thing is the divisive spirit that, I know even as I talk tonight, I'll get quite rude emails from people who know no more or less than I do, but they're determined to slam home their point. Because we've become quite angry and we become a little bit militant, perhaps. Maybe it's because we're all a bit upset and, grieving in some ways. But it got like it over Brexit in the United Kingdom too. And it seems to be getting like it over lots of things, pro-Trump, anti-Trump, all this kind of stuff. Society's become a really divisive place. And I wonder sometimes, where have the reasonable people gone? Where are the people that give things a bit of a, benefit of the doubt type stuff? So we're in an infodemic and we don't know what to believe. So here's what I would say as a church leader is what I need in order to move forward is clarity. That's the thing I need more than we need to know some facts and we need some clarity. We need to get rid of the spin. We need to get rid of the conspiracy theories, and we need to somehow find our way to facts so that we can find our way forward. Is anybody on my planet? We somehow got to get through there. I mean, it gets all confused about things like lockdown. I got a few notes here. That's why I keep looking down so that I hopefully try and say something in a straight line that you can all make sense of a little bit. But, you got the WHO. Have you seen that video? I think it's the British envoy to the WHO begging government leaders, essentially, pleading with them, don't use lockdowns. And here we are, just still stamping around on these massive lockdowns as if it's the only thing we know how to do. And maybe it is the only thing to do, although plenty of people are coming out with alternatives, eminent people, capable people, professors and epidemiologists, things like the Great Barrington Declaration, is it called? Stuff like that. Finding alternatives way forward. What could we have done for the money that we've spent so far the last 9 months? There are alternatives way forward. I was on a video call with the head of Tier Fund yesterday, I think it was. And I can't remember who he was quoting now, but he was talking about the fears that 100 million people are going to be pushed into abject poverty so very, very soon if we keep on with the lockdowns. Not saying that something doesn't need to be done. I think there's lots of awareness of the complexity of what on earth do we do next. But what I would say as a church leader is this. I need clarity. That's what I need in order to know what to do to move forward. I know some people will go, just meet, just break the law and meet. But you got to understand, my situation is I have to look after everything from the 8-year-olds to the 80-year-olds. And I might feel fine as a 50-year-old man who's fit and healthy going, come on, let's just go for it. But you have to think for everyone. And I watched this has happened in the States, some guys parroting John G. Lake lines. John G. Lake was the guy that put the plague on his hand and they watched it under a microscope because he believed, my physical body is a member of Christ. The plague will die when it touches me. And it did. And then I hear preachers parroting John G. Lake's faith, but then they die of COVID. So you're in that thing where sometimes there's a little bit of denial going on rather than faith. So again, I would say, what do I need? We need clarity. The government needs to begin to win back trust by being transparent, by getting a bit real, by what's the latest one going on? How many deals have there been for the boys? That's all over the papers at the moment, that are people making money off PPE and vaccines and things like this. So again, we're in this world that is awash with messy information. We need to find clarity. And I just pray that there are some things that can take place that will bring clarity. I do feel as though better information is beginning to get onto mainstream news. And so and then that leads to my second point, because they are connected, is should the church be taking the government to court? Should we be questioning some decisions? And I want to say to that, absolutely we should. While some people will go, no, Romans 13, we've got to honor authority. Absolutely. It is honoring authority to use the systems that have been put in place as checks and balances in a democracy. That is the authority system we live under. So it's perfectly okay to question decisions in a court of law and insist that people look at facts properly. And hopefully judges can help discern between what is real and what is spin, between what is real and what is conspiracy theory. That's what they're there for. So maybe it needs to come out of the hand of politicians and out of the hands of YouTube conspiracy theorists and actually sit in the courts, so that we can actually get a little bit of a sense of what might be real. It might be really, really useful. And you've got to understand that isn't dishonoring. It is honoring the system. Nobody's being rude. They're just going, we need to check that what is going on is legal in the land in which we live, because we're not living under a dictator. The authority structure we live under is a free speech democracy. So we have every right to stand on a street corner and go, I don't think this is right. As many eminent people far cleverer than me are saying, the worry is that if we continue with lockdowns, that the deaths in the medium to long term will be higher. They might be slightly less in the short term, but if we carry on, we're actually going to rack up even more deaths. So big questions need to be asked on behalf of the poor and on behalf of the vulnerable, so that we all get through this the best we can, right? Now, when it comes to courts, have you noticed that there was a court case in Portugal the other day? And I'm just bringing up a bit of a document on the side here. You won't be able to see it, but it's so I can read a few things to you. There was a court case in Portugal just the other day, and it's amazing what's come out. And some guys who were asked to quarantine, one of them tested positive, ended up questioning that in court, and the court has come out on the side of the four guys. I don't know all the details, so go research it if you want. I'm not trying to be a news place, okay? So don't you go search it out. But here's just a couple of the things, because one of the big questions is stuff like the PCR tests. How accurate are they? As well as that, I don't know about you, I'm tired of hearing of people with no symptoms who are supposed to be cases. I know. Well, let's not go any further with that. And then the other one is, I want to know who is dying of COVID, not just with COVID. These basic facts make it hard to really get a grasp on what's going on, isn't it? But anyway, this Portuguese court comes out and it says this: a medical diagnosis, I'm reading this now, is a medical act that only a physician is legally qualified to undertake, and for which such physician will be solely and entirely responsible. No other person or institution, including government agencies or the courts, has such an authority. It is not up to the Azores Regional Health Authority to declare someone ill or a health hazard. Only a physician can do that. And on it goes. And then there's another little finding. There's a load of them, but I'm only going to read a couple of them. It says this is a court of law. Based on the currently available scientific evidence, this test, the RT-PCR test, which is the major one used in the country at the moment, is in and of itself unable to determine beyond reasonable doubt that positivity, in fact, corresponds to infection by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. That's amazing, isn't it? So I would say, look, yes, we do need to use the courts as churches to go, really, is this legal? We have put so many precautions in. If people are allowed to go to supermarkets, with our church, boy, sometimes when we opened up in between the two lockdowns, only 10% of people would turn up. So it really wasn't crowded anyway. It was super spread out, super safe, loads of good stuff going on. So what I would say right now is we need clarity. And yes, I don't think we need to object to churches using the courts to find that. It'll be to find that clarity. It'll be really interesting when we are able to hear the decisions of the courts about what is going on with some stuff right now, and we can hopefully find a bit of clarity. Now, I want to leave you with a little bit of hope in that. I'm not finishing it now. I'm just finishing this point, but a little bit of hope. Did you hear Jacob Rees-Mogg in Parliament talking about essentially the power of the state versus the eternal power of God? Now, I'm not a conservative voter or particularly a Labour voter. I've voted either way, different ways throughout my life. So if you can find me some Labour politicians quoting scripture or anything like that, that would be really cool too. But I thought this one was cool. Let me just play you it and let me just say a few words about it, because I quite liked this coming up in Parliament. You might not get the first bit because he goes through history, but by the end, you'll realise that's actually quite a cool quote. Put your opinions on Jacob Rees-Mogg to one side or the Conservatives, but just listen to what he's saying. I just like anyone that wants to talk about God in Parliament, as far as I'm concerned. Have a little listen to this.
The relationship between the church and state is one that sometimes proves rather difficult. Who can forget the 29th of December 1170, when Thomas à Becket was murdered in his own cathedral by the agents of the state sent by Henry II, and the relationship between church and state has not always been smooth. It was a great matter for discussion by medieval scholars who concentrated on Luke 22:38. There are two swords, and the question is, which sword is superior, the spiritual sword or the temporal sword? Now, the temporal authorities often think that the temporal sword is the superior sword, but the ecclesiastical authorities were very happy to argue with this, and Pope Boniface VIII put it at its highest level in his papal bull Unum Sanctum of 1302, which claimed that all secular authorities were secondary to the spiritual authorities. And we have seen this argument rage over the centuries, with greater powers taken by the state and then freedom of religion reasserting itself. So I think my honourable friend raises a point of fundamental importance. But the hope that we may all take, the reassurance that those of us who have faith may be certain of, is that the highest authority is unquestionably immortal, invisible, and only wise, and even outside the control of the House of Commons.
I love that. Did you like that? Oh boy, the highest authority is God. And I think let's remember that in all of this, whatever goes on, that, Jesus ministered under a Roman occupation. It would have been difficult, bloodthirsty at times, oppressive at times. And yet Jesus was going after the souls of men. He wasn't trying to transform politics in order to go after the souls of men. And I'm not against, I got friends that are transforming politics, and God bless you. It's a complex thing. Just like I've got friends that are transforming education and medicine and business and other spheres like that. We absolutely should get involved. But the heart of the matter is this. When it's all going wrong, just remember who's still in charge. Whose is the greater sword, right? Ultimately, God is the ultimate authority, and we're going to come out of this with him stronger if we keep walking, keep our spirits sweet, right? We've got to keep away from the divisive stuff and keep our spirits sweet. I think that's really, really important, right? I want you to listen to a song. I've written a few songs in lockdown, and I've recorded a few demos. They're not all great quality, but here's a one that I just did live on the guitar a little while ago for some Tribe TV, probably back in the spring, something like that. It's called The Gatherings Are Coming, and it's a prophetic song to say, do you know what? we are going to get back to gatherings, to the glory of God moving, to revival, to harvest, to the presence of God moving. And in fact, let me just say something I meant to say. On a video call that I was on yesterday, I was sat there with some amazing people, and Andy Hawthorne, other names that I better not mention, the guy who founded CAP, John Kirkby, and people like that. And they were talking about the things, even under lockdown, that are going on right now. Do you know what? There is a breakout of mission in the church right now. So while we're desperate to go back to our Sundays, and I'm with you, let's remember that the mission hasn't stopped. And in fact, some of them, boy, it was amazing to hear what is going on. So let's not just sit back and think nothing is going on. Actually, it's a tremendous time of opportunity. But let me play you this right now. The gatherings are coming, and we are going to see the glory of God move in our land again. The enemy hates the gathering. The enemy hates our singing. The enemy's silenced by the praising saints. The royal assembly of the risen King. Gatherings are coming. It won't be long. The gatherings are coming. There'll soon be the sound of song. The gatherings are coming, where His glory will fall, and the beauty of the Lord will be seen by all, and the beauty of the Lord will be seen. My Jesus, He loves the gathering. My Jesus, He loves our singing. King Jesus, He fills our praising. A throne of worship for the risen King. The gatherings are coming. It won't be long. The gatherings are coming. There'll soon be the sound of song. The gatherings are coming, where His glory will fall, and the beauty of the Lord will be seen by all, and the beauty of the Lord will be seen. The gatherings are coming. It won't be long. Gatherings are coming. There'll soon be the sound of song. The gatherings are coming, where His glory will fall, and the beauty of the Lord will be seen by all, and the beauty of the Lord will be seen. Yes, the beauty of the Lord will be seen by all, and the beauty of the Lord will be seen. Hey, did you like that? The gatherings are coming. And, it may have been a really tough year when it comes to gatherings, but actually, Revived Church, for November, we've been the busiest ever. It's been incredible. We had an amazing prayer week last week. Half night prayer, all online, different houses all around the region. It was so cool. And we got just so much stuff going on every single day. So the online stuff really has exploded in this season. It has been, as I've been prophesying for a little while, it's been a real season of innovation. And usually limitation leads to innovation. There's a good thing, right? A good little quote. Think about it. Limitation leads to innovation. Sometimes it's actually lazy to just spend money and get something done. When you're tight financially, it leads to an innovation of a new way to do something. I think that's a prophetic word for somebody out there. You need to look at things, not go, I can't afford it, but instead go, how can we do this in a completely different way? Because something happens when we don't just throw money at things, but we actually throw wisdom and insight and fresh ways of looking at stuff, at things. So I just pray that's for somebody out there. Let's talk about stress, shall we, for a minute? Oh, have a little drink. Let's talk about stress. Boy, anybody been stressed this year? I have. Blow it out. What a year it's been. It's been been tough on all of us, hasn't it? And I think lots of us have been grieving in different ways. The loss of a way of life and stuff like that. But also, I heard another one yesterday on my little video call that I mentioned a couple of times. Somebody said we're also, as church leaders, are going through a kind of a moral grief that you're unable to do some certain things. There have been church leaders that have lost loved ones, and they've been unable to be there by the bedside, stuff like that. It's been a real tough, strange year, and so, but filled with stress for everyone, isn't it? Whether it's financial or way of life type stuff. So I want to just talk for a few minutes on God's way of dealing with stress. It's hidden in the Bible right from the very beginning, and lots of modern Christians don't think about it at all. But when God made the world, and he took 6 days to make the world, and then it says that he took the seventh day, listen to these words, he blessed it and made it holy. The first thing that God ever made holy was a 24-hour time period. You ever thought about that? He blessed 24 hours in a week, and he called it holy. He called it set apart. That literally means. The principle that God has designed for man to overcome stress is Sabbath. Now, I don't know about you. I grew up in traditional Pentecostalism when we were kind of a little bit cranky about the Sabbath, the Lord's Day. It was the day when you couldn't go to the fun restaurant and eat a nice meal. It was the one day you couldn't go to the cinema. It was a bit of a miserable day. But that's not how God has meant the Sabbath to be. And in fact, when Jesus came along, he offended all the religious people by his correct use of the Sabbath. And he corrected their theology. He said, you got it wrong. You guys, you're serving the Sabbath. But understand, this is how Jesus put it. Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Listen, on the seventh day, God made something for you. To you, he gave you a 24-hour period every week of stopping, of pausing, of resting, of spending time with him. And this is what it's supposed to be, of spending time fun with your family, with all the pressure off. It's not just not doing work, it's not even thinking about work. It's how you were wired to be. You're supposed to have not just a day off, because this is what lots of modern Christians do, is they have a day off, and on that day they clean the house, do the accounts, check their private emails versus their work ones, and they end up actually, you're working 7 days a week if you do that. We are supposed to have 24 hours in every week where we switch off from even the thought of work. We stop working, and we just have a day of pure pleasure, leisure, godly fun. But let's be honest, if you're a Christian, every bit of fun you ever have should be godly. So it's not that you can't go to the cinema. Every movie I watch with Jesus. Whatever I'm doing, I'm chatting to him about it, thinking about it with him. So if I can't watch it with Jesus, I'd never watch it anyway, whatever day of the week it is. Sabbath is a day to completely chill out with God and with each other and do stuff that just refreshes and regenerates you. It literally means to stop and to pause. And we are wired as human beings to biologically need to pause once every 7 days for 24 hours of rest. Now, I don't think it needs to be on a Saturday like the Jews or a Sunday like old-fashioned Christians used to be. It could be any day of the week. For me, certainly, my Sabbath is never going to be a Sunday because I work every Sunday. For me, most often, Sabbath starts 6 o'clock on a Friday night. The way that the Jews do it is they would start it in the evening and it would run to the next evening. So 6 o'clock in the evening, something like that, very roughly, very approximately in our house. And it's something that we've really picked up this year as the whole theme of the Sabbath has come back again and again to me in learning how to deal with stress and cope with it. And God has gone. I've given you Sabbath. I've made it holy. And I never took it away. Now we might go, yeah, but it's one of the 10 commandments. Think of it. It's okay. So it's one of the 10 commandments. Which of the other 9 do you also not do anymore, right? Or do you think, well, they don't matter? And is it that stealing's okay, or adultery's okay, or murder's okay, or idolatry's okay? Which one is it? No, you don't. It didn't suddenly go to 9 commandments for New Testament Christians. It's there among the 10 as the way that God has designed humanity to work. And there's only a couple of thou shalts. Most of them are thou shalt nots, isn't it? Don't covet, don't lie, don't steal, don't murder. There's only a couple of thou shalts, and one of them is thou shalt have 24 hours off every week to relax with me and not do any work. So in our house, we make sure that cleaning the house, that's one of the 6 days thou shalt labor. Clean the house on those days. Check your emails on those days. Do the DIY on those days. We make sure that all of our work is done in 6 days, whether it's personal or your job that gets you a salary. And then 1 day a week, we just go, right, this is Sabbath. We're not very good at this bit yet, but we've been talking about it recently. Because I know people that literally, they get their phones and they go, right, it's Sabbath. The phone is going in the drawer. No social media, no phone, 24 hours of just completely defragging. Can I use that phrase as a computer phrase, isn't it? Letting my filing system sort itself out again, just completely relaxing. I'm not going to think about work. And here's quite a key for our lives. I'm not going to hanker after more. I'm going to absolutely be grateful for what I've got and be deeply contented about what God's given me in life, where I live, who I live with or not, the food in the cupboard, the things I can do right now. I'm not hankering for the next car or the next holiday or to get out of lockdown or whatever it is. You need 24 hours a day just to completely rest your mind, sit there completely in the moment, and hear your own soul again, and hear the whisper of the Holy Spirit as he walks through your heart, and worship him and enjoy him and read a good book and watch a good movie. In fact, we've picked up something called pleasure stacking. What's pleasure stacking? Because this is what Sabbath is all about. It's not supposed to be miserable. I mean, let's be honest, the Jews added loads of rules, and modern ones are even worse, and made the Sabbath potentially to a lot of us seem quite miserable. I was brought up in a foreign country. I lived in an apartment block, and above us were Jews. And literally, I'd arrive as a teenage kid at the lift at the bottom of the block of flats, and the Jews will be waiting there, and they go, "Oh, thank goodness you've come. Would you press the buttons for the lift?" Because they were allowed to get in the lift, but they couldn't press the buttons for the lift. It just became rules of weird things they could or couldn't do. That's not what Sabbath is for. It's 24 hours given to you as a gift by God to say, don't work. And I promise you, if you don't work that 24 hours, if you rest, I will bless you. It's just like tithing. I will bless your 90% more than your 100%. Just give it to me as an act of worship, and I will give you rest. It does something. So Vicky and I, what was I talking about? Pleasure stacking. We're into pleasure stacking. We create pleasure stack lists. What does that mean? Well, what are all the things you love to do that refresh you? Here's a little project for you. Go make a list as a family of all the things you love to do alone and together that refresh you? What is it? For me, it might be reading, it might be painting, it might be playing some music, going for a walk. Usually outside of lockdown, it's going to a restaurant, going on a date with Vicky. We pile up all the things that we love to do. And here's what Sabbath's supposed to be. It's a day just full of pleasure stacking. From 6 in the evening, you put the phone away. Some people light a candle just to spiritually remind themselves this is a special holy moment in the week that wasn't taken away by what Jesus did. It's still there. I know you can observe it in different ways, and it shouldn't be legalistic, but you need to think about this. It was there at creation. It's in one of the 10 commandments, and you don't break the other 9, so what makes you think you can break that one? Okay? And Jesus said it was made for you, not you just to serve it. Find 24 hours a day to enjoy each other, to rest from work, and to enjoy God. And you will find that your entire life gets recalibrated. Why don't you think about it? Try it. There's some great books out there on Sabbath. I'll tweet about them. I'll tweet them out and put them on Facebook and stuff like that, so you can have a look at them. If you're interested in going further, in getting the hustle and the hurry and the stress out of your life, begin with the very basics of how God made us to live and begin to observe the Sabbath. It's a powerful thing, and it's not a chore. It's supposed to be absolutely heaps of fun. Well, I'll leave that one with you. Let's listen to a song, and then we're going to come back with some more teaching on worship. And I'm going to talk about frustration and how it can lead to moves of God. When I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died, my richest gain I can but love and pour content on all my pride. See from his head, his hands, his feet, sorrow and love flow mingled down. Did e'er such love or sorrow meet, or thorns compose? I love the old hymns, don't you? That's cool. I love that. We're going to look at this book, Glory in the Church, in a minute. And we started the first part of this last week. And it's something that we're doing with the tribe at the moment and on our learning community. And this particular book is about my own pursuit to go beyond just music-led worship into a place that I suspect the early church was more into, which was an encounter culture driven of prayer that kind of had music around it. But I think if somebody dropped into our world from the early church, they would go, wow, it really is more like, it's just different. It's like a concert, but where is the depth of a move of God among you? And for me, my own experience began with some real frustration, but that actually led to a move of God. And so I'm going to keep these going as we go through November, because I think you'll find it interesting. But before we go to that, just let me tell you about something that I'm doing with the tribe online at the moment in our online learning community. Tier 3 is where a team of 10 can join the tribe together, and essentially it's a church mentoring program. Now, every single one of those members gets full access to the Tribe Zone, which is 500 modules of teaching on everything from leadership, church growth, the prophetic, revival, theology, history, all kinds of stuff like that. But the extras that you get in Tier 3 is when you join as a church together is that I do Zoom consultations with the church. And I have to say, that's something that I've loved doing, is consulting with church leadership teams right the way through lockdown. I've been on Zoom helping them to work out what to do next, leadership changes, what's going to happen post lockdown, how to redesign stuff. I can talk about some of the nuts and bolts that I couldn't really publicly talk about here on a YouTube channel. And we just help church leaders to lead their churches, and I love doing it. So if church mentoring or the mentoring of a leadership team interests you, or you got a church leader near you that you think, well, they might be interested in this, let them know. Tier 3 of the tribe is a way that we're mentoring church leadership teams around the world. And I would love to invest in church leaders. It's what I love to do. So if that interests you, let them know. What we're going to do right now, though, is we are going to go to this teaching, Glory in the Church, and we're going to talk about frustration. Did you like the quote? Frustration is usually the first prophet of any move of God. So if you're frustrated, listen up. Don't push it away. Stop thinking that you're a rebel. It might just be God stirring inside something in you that will just go, there has to be more than this. And you hear heaven echo, there is, there is, there is. Listen to this teaching. I pray it blesses you. Welcome to chapter 2 of Glory in the Church. This chapter is called Frustration from Heaven. I have had to live with loads of frustration in my life, but I often think that frustration is the first prophet of any move of God. When you start to get frustrated inside, it's often God just plucking the strings of your heart to play a tune that says, there's more than this. There's more than this. But to us, it just feels like, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated. I wrote at the beginning of this chapter, it says, a recent survey revealed that, and here's a quote, a majority of people leave church without feeling that they experience God's presence. And listen to this, and that in a typical weekend, less than 1/3 of adults who attend services feel as if they truly interacted with God. That's an incredible thing to say. If you think about all the money that's spent on worship ministry, the things that we do, the way we build up our worship services, the hype in the worship scene around the world these days, and still heaps of people, less than 1/3 would say, I interacted with God in church this weekend. That's incredible. Something is deeply wrong. And these are the things that began to kind of bubble in me in the early 90s that would make me question, there must be more to church than this. And I know I say it often, but there's got to be more than 3 fast songs, 3 slow songs, and then put the preacher on Sunday after Sunday around the world. There are 3 signs in this chapter, 3 things that I think show us that something is deeply wrong with the blueprint we've been using for the culture of what we do when we gather. And here's the first sign that something's wrong: predictability. The fact that we know what's going to happen next all the time. John 3 verse 8 says this: the wind blows wherever it pleases, you hear its sound, but listen, you cannot tell where it comes from or where it is going. So it is with everyone born of the Spirit. You can't tell where they're coming from. You can't tell where they're going. There is a secret influencer that is guiding them. And therefore, all great men and women of God and moves of God through all the pages of history have been marked by unpredictability. The fact that our church services are so predictable, we know what's going to happen next. In fact, we positively use patterns to place things into patterned ways so that people just feel comfortable. And even that word winds me up sometimes slightly. We've got to get back to the adventure and the exploration of what it is to know God. But the fact that our church services are so predictable, the God whose imagination designed the flea and the elephant, the buttercup and the oak, do we really think that all that he can think of us to do, for us to do every Sunday all around the globe is 3 fast songs, 3 slow songs, then put the preacher on, and if we get really excited, have an altar call at the end? Is that really it? Or could there be something more of an adventure that God wants to do? The great global predictability of church behavior is a sign to me that we are regurgitating culture, not listening to the Spirit, because the Spirit of God has immense imagination. He has immense diversity. He has immense spontaneity. He has the ability to move off in different directions all the time. The fact that I can travel to another land, I can literally go to the other side of the world, and even when I walk into a church service for the first time, I can largely predict what is going to happen, even in a so-called Spirit-filled service. I can largely predict what will follow what, roughly. There's even charismatic Spirit-filled liturgy, isn't there? Now, we do patterns of behavior from memory rather than from ministry, rather than from a listening to the Holy Spirit. Why? When the level of the Holy Spirit's gone down in our life, all we're left with is the structure, but without the dynamism of the Holy Spirit moving. Predictability is the first sign that something's gone wrong in our services. The second sign in the Western church is prayerlessness. This is the second sign that something really is wrong. If Brother Yonggi Cho and every other revivalist that there's ever been is right, and they say prayer is the key to revival, prayer is the key to great moves of God, then we're in trouble. Because a lot of the time, when I ask congregations, how's your prayer life? Do you struggle to pray? 95% of the people put their hands in the air and say, yeah, I struggle to pray. Here's the even scarier thing. I heard of a leader who recently went and spoke to 70 pastors. And as he stood up to talk to the pastors, he said to this group of 70 pastors, Spirit-filled believers, said, how many of you have had some moments with God in prayer this morning? And I think it was only one hand that went up in the room. A room full of 70 pastors, and they'd not prayed that morning. I've sat with leaders of major churches who tell me that they have 15 minutes of prayer with God each morning. Oh boy, the revivalists of old, the great leaders of great moves of God around the world right now would tell you you can't survive on less than an hour of prayer with God if you're going to lead something of a move of God. There must be a thirsty devotedness to prayer. But very often prayer is the least attended thing in church that we do. It's a sign that something is deeply wrong with our model. Prayer is the engine room that makes true moves of God take place. So where you'll find a service that's predictable and perhaps a little bit too reliant on performance rather than power, where you find prayerlessness, something's deeply wrong in the model that we're using. And here's a third one, an interesting one, and you may or may not get this, but let me put it to you. I've written here in this chapter, the third sign that something is wrong. I just call it worship leader dependency.
As I travel around the world, many pastors will say to me the line, our worship is great in our church. Being a bit mischievous, I often turn around and just say, okay, your worship is great in your church. Right, remove the band and then tell the church to worship. That's how good your worship is. What you probably meant is we've got a great band. They're really good people. And that might be absolutely true, fantastic, but that doesn't mean you've got a worshipping church. It might mean you've got a worshipping platform or even a great fantastic. But a worshipping church is something that happens in the body. God is not looking for worship leaders, he's looking for worshippers. It's something that happens in the very fabric of the church himself. When God is looking for a place to rest, he's looking for a throne of worship to rest upon. And it is this worship leader dependency. Do you know, it's a bit of a joke, but it's half true, I think. Pastors are under so much pressure to have good music in their churches that if the devil's brother-in-law walks in the door and he can play a few chords on guitar, they'll say, oh, come on, you lead worship. There's no testing of character. All sorts of things are going on in the background. And we allow them to take over half, if not in some church patterns, more of a service and sing their songs, but it is not a serious ministry in so many places. It can be led by immature people. It can be led by messed up people. And we're going, yeah, take the people of God and just lead them for half a service. Think about it. We are so dependent on good music. And in fact, let's be honest, as consumer Christians, we're the worst. We're the ones that create this with pastors too, because we go, I want to go to a church where the worship is good. Not realizing that the finger is pointing right at ourselves when there's the question of, is the worship good? Because the worship is about the worshippers. What you meant is, I want a platform that entertains me with soothing, high quality music, environments that feel beautiful. And we've ended up in a place where we consume worship rather than be worshippers. And so we end up with what I call worship leader dependency. And as we go into the next chapter, I'm going to tell you about the time when I first began to speak about and then experiment with the concept of the misuse of music ministry, where we make it so central to the life of our churches. Not worship, music ministry in particular. The way we worship using music as a model in Western church is actually stealing from the very sense of the glory of God moving among us. It's a radical chapter coming up. It's going to be an interesting one, but let's look at how we can go from prayerlessness, predictability, and worship leader dependency into a place of the glory of God moving amongst us. I experimented with something in the early 90s and it led to a move of God. Let me tell you about it in the next chapter.
Is that radical enough for you? Oh boy. So when we come to that next week, I think it'll start to make sense a little bit more. But yeah, I experimented with some stuff in the 90s, and it really led to a remarkable move of God. Now you got to understand, I'm not anti-music. I mean, look over which shoulder is it? That look, you got the guitars there, you got the keyboard here, you got my recording computer there. I'm into music ministry. But God touched my life with his glory in the 90s in such a way that I fell out of love with music and I fell in love with his glory. And so I only ever used music to accompany God moving and God speaking and God encountering people and people encountering God. That's what I wanted. It stopped becoming about me and my music and hear me and all that kind of stuff that musicians can fall for. It suddenly became my one pursuit was his presence. And a bit like the priests when the glory filled the temple, if that meant me not playing, then I was okay with not playing and not doing. And just something broke out. Think of it. We've got all these worship leaders, but we lack the glory of God. The early church had not a single worship leader, and yet the glory of God was moving among them. There must be something wrong with our model, and that's been my pursuit. If you come to church services that I'm involved in, and or even where I'm leading, you'll see I use music and stuff like that, but there's just some subtle stuff that I want to talk about and just bring to you, that if we can adjust what we're pursuing, what could break out among us, it really could be remarkable. So you're going to enjoy that next week. Next week's is the most radical of all the chapters in this, but hopefully also it will begin to make sense as I explain a move of God that broke out when we began to step from the normal model of worship today into something that was a little bit more like the book of Acts. And I've seen God do similar things since. So we're going to have some fun with that. I hope you enjoy it. Well, that's pretty much it. Thank you, everybody, for being with me today. It's been really, really good to be with you. Just a reminder, the Tribe, this is completely free, but the Tribe is our online learning community. Check it out at jarrodcooper.net. Currently, we have 50% off annual membership. If you want to have a look at that, I'll play you a little video in a minute so you can learn all about the Tribe. And then, of course, tier 3 of the Tribe is where teams join together, and I get to mentor leadership teams, which I love doing, and to help you with some real nuts and bolts stuff and prophetic stuff and leadership stuff, and hopefully to see churches grow and transform the nation. Thanks for being with me tonight. I've loved it. Please share the link of this video. What I'm starting to do is I will upload this video to Facebook and play it. I'll premiere it on Saturday nights at 8 o'clock. So it's live on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock. I'll premiere it premiere it on Saturday nights on Facebook at 8 o'clock as well, so more people can enjoy it. Wonderful. Thank you for being with me. If you've got any ideas of stuff you'd like me to chat about, just let me know. It's been really good to be with you tonight. Thank you for keeping me company. I hope I've kept you company. All the messages. Thank you so much. Bless you guys. And I'll see you soon. Here's some stuff about the Tribe if you want to know any more.
What is the Tribe, I hear you ask? Well, it's a global online learning community. There are loads of us around the world interacting, growing, stretching in the things of God together and having fun as we learn. There's 3 tiers in the Tribe. Tier 1 is basic access to our Tribe Zone. It is an online learning zone. We use the same software as Harvard University, so it's great, it's powerful, it's intuitive, and it works really well on everything from a tablet to a phone to a laptop. And you can grow with us in the things of God over everything from leadership to church growth to faith, things of the Spirit, prophetic, the miraculous. It's all there. 500 modules of audio, video, e-courses and stuff like that. As well as that, you get a private Facebook group where you can interact with Vicky and I, and we can be growing in the things of God together. Tier 2 is all of that, but it's for leaders. It's our global leadership tribe. And so it has a lot more leadership content as well. You get 4 books the moment that you join sent to you, and then you will get every book I write in the period of your membership sent to you free of charge. We want to invest in leaders, and so it's much more interactive at Tier 2. Tier 3 is where 10 leaders in one team can join together so you can learn and grow. It is a brilliant resource to give to all of your team. You don't always want to lose them as they head off to Bible school. You want to train them right where they are in a training community, and that's what this is. So if Tier 3 interests you, have a little look at that. Let me show you some testimonials of what people are saying about their life and learning with the tribe.
Hey there, it's Roma Waterman here from Melbourne, Australia. I just want to say I'm amazed at the amount of resources that are in Tribe and the fresh content that's constantly being added. I say this with complete truthfulness. I think Pastor JARROD Cooper is one of the best teachers in leadership and the prophetic and creativity that I have heard in the world. So I highly recommend it. I highly recommend that you sign up and be part of such an amazing community.
Hi, my name's Dave Mallender. I'm the pastor of Grace Church Bridlington, and we connected with the tribe because we knew a lot of the people, and the voices that we heard were encouraging and inspiring. A lot of prophetic voices that helped us and guided us. It helped us to feel like we were part of the global picture and not just our little part of the jigsaw. But above all things, we learned 2 specific things: practical and spiritual, and the practical things that we have taken principles from the tribe and applied them to our church, which means we manage it better, we present it better, we make it look better and sound better. And the practical principles have been brilliant, but there is also the spiritual principles of apostolic anointing. And as we've listened and applied spiritual principles into our church, we've actually seen the church start to grow, and we believe that we're about to hit the second wave of growth from connecting to the tribe. So we want to say God bless you, thanks for doing what you're doing, and encourage you to get involved if you can with the tribe.
Hi, I love the tribe because it's a place of the prophetic, it's a place of fun, and with a healthy dose of the practical included as well. There's a whole wealth of resources on there that will keep you going for years, and on such a range of subjects that you could do Bible school in your pyjamas if you wanted to. And where else could you get an international apostle like Jarrod answering your questions? It's just brilliant. So if you ever feel a bit like Elijah and thinking, oh, poor old me, I'm the only one left who's been zealous for God, then you can just log into the tribe community and discover, no, actually, God's reserved a whole remnant of people who are there, ready and waiting to encourage each other on and do great things for God's kingdom. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, come over and join us. It would be lovely to meet you.
Isn't that incredible? Head to JARRODCOOPER.net and come on, join this family of people growing in the things of God, growing in the Word, growing in the Spirit, and enjoying this journey of walking in God together. You don't have to be alone. You don't have to make it up as you go along. Come and join the tribe, and let's enjoy life together.